All right. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, the 9th of Feb, 2023. It's 4 p.m. actually. I've got the day off today, so I'm just hanging out, getting some chores done. Ate some lunch before. I'm going to go to the gym after this. I was going to do this later. I figured, you know what? What's the better time? Like, why would I wait? And I guess part of the reason I want to wait is because I never know how to start these things. Not having like a script to go off, or not having like an idea before I sit down. Sometimes I sit there and I rack my brain. I'm like, oh, what can I talk about? You know, and I just never really know. And it's tough. Like sitting down and doing this every day is tough because like, how can you explore a new thing every day? But I guess it doesn't have to be a new thing. It could just be the same thing. Obviously, no one wants to listen to the same thing every day. But also, the whole point of this isn't so people will listen necessarily. It's not for entertainment. It's like maybe if I was like writing in a journal, let's say, I'd be sitting down and I'd be talking every day about the same thing, or like how those things transpire and how they, what I'm doing to work on those things. And so, yeah, maybe I'll talk about that. One thought that I did have before I jumped on this was how much I've changed since I was like 20 years old. And I'm 27 now, so I'm not really that much older. But I guess 7 years, I read somewhere once that like every 7 years, all your cells have fully changed. And so like that you go through this transformation as a person. It was like things that happened to you 7 years ago shouldn't be affecting you anymore. I don't know what it was. It was ridiculous, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments if it ever gets to that point. But when I was 20, I had not long before that I discovered weed. And I think it's interesting. I didn't have my first drink other than like a shandy or something with Dad, which, you know, not really great. But I remember when he taught me how to mow the lawns. After that, we had a refreshing shandy. So it was a beer mixed with lemonade, and it was pretty good at the time. But I've had one recently, and they're just not good. and so we sat down, we had that, and that was a really sort of memorable moment. It was a really nice moment. But my first drink, I remember being with the boys, and we got like, I don't know, a 6-pack, maybe a 10-pack of Bundy and Cokes. I had 2, and I was feeling real fucky. But it was like not long before my 18th birthday. So I was 17 at the time. Like I didn't want to get into all that party stuff and all that other stuff. I had mates that were drinking from 15, 16, and not that I was judging them or anything. It just wasn't part of my path, you know? And so when I started drinking, I would drink like, not heavily necessarily, but we were drinking, 3 nights a week, maybe even more depending. It wasn't like one with every meal. It was like, drink to get drunk and have fun with the boys, play video games or go to another person's house and have parties or whatever. You're just discovering alcohol. You're discovering that side of life where you can now acquire it legally and all these other things. So you start to experiment with it, and obviously then there's the next step, which is like illicit drugs, illicit substances and stuff. And so it wasn't until I found I had smoked pot for the first time. And I remember having a puff or two of a joint, and I was just curious, right? Because I had this image in my head of weed being like this fucking life-ruining plant. I mean, I watched my mum smoking it and being like just mentally unwell, and it wasn't. I look back on it now. Obviously, she was just mentally unwell, regardless of weed, and weed obviously doesn't help situations like that. It's used as an escape. And so I grew up, and I was like, you could probably ask anybody that knew me in high school, I was vehemently against it. I was so against it, to the point where I'd be at parties and I reject it, and I'd be like, oh, let me tell you a story about my mum. and I look back on that guy, and it's like I was ill-informed. I didn't have the right perspective. And so when I started smoking weed, my perspective shifted, right? My entire identity had changed as this person who was vehemently against it to someone who was a little bit more accepting of things I didn't know about, right? Because it wasn't just weed that I was against. If I had an idea about something, and I would sit there and I'd think that I knew everything about that thing, and so you couldn't convince me that, you know, the sky was blue if I thought it was green. You know, that was just sort of who I was when I was that age. And I smoked pot for the first time. My perspective changed. I started to think about all these different things that I didn't know about. I started asking a lot of questions, and questions that would often go unanswered. You know, different things about life, different things. You would think, I'd think back on, you know, experiences that I had when I was a kid. I'd think about, you know, I used to have this really bad problem where I would just lie, but not to like get myself out of trouble, but just like I would just tell people things that didn't happen, and there would be no way of them ever finding out that that wasn't the case. And I thought it would make me sound cool, but like it wasn't even cool shit. You know, it was like, oh yeah, I did this in a video game. And I was like, really? I've got no proof of it, but you have to trust that I did that. Fucking stupid shit, you know? And I started to think about those, and I started to really reflect on who I was and the way that I was, because I was right for so long. And so weed just allowed me to, I guess, realize that I was wrong and realize that those behaviors were not okay. Well, not okay. You have to do them to learn from them. But I think it's interesting, the yo-yo effect of being so vehemently against something to slingshotting back the other way, where I am so pro this thing that I couldn't believe I was once ever not for it. When I was once, in fact, not just not for it, I was against it, right? You can be not for something, right? I'm not for tin tuna, or you could be someone who protests at tin tuna factories. I don't know if that was a fucking stupid thing to say, but you know what I mean. And so I had this, I went through this phase, I want to call it, where I was just very optimistic, you know, and that optimistic guy was the guy that Maddie fell in love with, you know, the guy she'd get in the car and she'd be like, no, I hate this person. I'd be like, yo, hate's such a strong word, man. like a proper stoner trope, you know. Hey man, it's not that big, man. And you know, in a way, I'm glad that I went through that phase, but I think I sit here now, so I'm just wiping some sweat off my head if you could hear that. Not that I needed to tell anybody or justify it, but while we're being open and honest, it's hot in this fucking room. So, you know, and Maddie fell in love with that guy, and I was talking yesterday about how we transform as people and we change as people, and we've got to be accepting of each other and allowing growth in ourselves and accepting the growth in others. And, you know, that's the only way to move forward. And a big part of that is I'm looking now at myself. Why am I the way I am, right? I used to be very accepting of people, right? Very non-judgmental and very just, I guess, optimistic, you know. Most people were trying to do the right thing. And I still believe that. Most people are trying to do the right thing. They're just trying to live life and get by in the way that they know how. And I guess in a way, that's what this podcast is about, this journal is about, is like living that life myself actively and with an audience, or with the prospect of an audience, so that one day someone's going to listen to this and be like, huh, I don't think about any of these things. And now I do think about these things. And I'm going to do things to change my life. Or they're going to sit there and just laugh at these stories and think, wow, what a fucking loser, you know. There's no benefit for me sitting here and talking to this microphone. It's more for, I don't know. There's this element where I don't want anyone to listen to it. I think about Marcus Aurelius and how he wrote the meditations, they're his journals, right? They're his private journals, and now they're published for the world to see and the world to look at. And he talks about all these lessons that he's learned and all these things that he knows and all these things that he thinks, and they're on a spectacle now, but that's thousands of years in between him and us, right? And the stories are still relevant. So maybe one day, in 1,000 years, these stories will be relevant to somebody. Maybe I have a unique experience. Maybe my experience isn't unique, and we all have this shared experience that there is so much more relatable to what I'm going through and to how I'm living my life and what I'm thinking. But I don't know it yet, and maybe that's the benefit I get out of this. But who I was at 20, being optimistic and accepting and non-judgmental and trying to see the good, something shifted, and I don't know if that's because life has been kicking my ass, if that's because who I was at 15, I hadn't quite grown out of that at 20, and who I am now is not who I wanted to be by now. If I could go back to when I was 15, I would think, I thought at 25 I'd be a very different person, and now I'm 27 and I'm not that person. And there's is there a cynicism that comes with that? Is there a cynicism that comes with not living up to expectations of a younger version of me? I think back to like I'm in the gym now, and I'm in the gym now. And I was in the gym when I was like 18. And why did I stop going to the gym? Why did I lose my motivation? What was that? I know what I did while I wasn't at the gym, which was like get just fucking absolutely obliterated stoned quite frequently. I wouldn't even do anything though. I would just consume, video games, food, movies, just anything on the internet. I didn't go out and socialize much. I stopped hanging out with people. I started to get this idea that that people didn't really like me. They just said that they liked me because it was easier to say that than to admit that they didn't like me. And a big part of that was because I stopped liking people. I stopped becoming so optimistic. I stopped being so open and accepting. And I don't know if that was because I was feeling hurt. I don't know if that was because I had unchecked trauma that I wasn't looking at. I don't know if that was because I don't have the answers. And this is the problem with sitting here and talking to this microphone every day, is that you end up asking more questions than answers you receive. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe by asking these questions consistently and thinking about this all the time, it allows me to get back in touch with that youthful side of myself that wanted so much more than what I have been achieving. And for argument's sake and for clarity's sake, who I am right now, I'm pretty content with. And who I am right now, I'm is the person that 15-year-old me, 16-year-old me, 17-year-old me would be proud of. I've come a long way since then, and but I haven't gone as far as I thought that I was going to go. And so I think there's, I can't beat myself up for who I'm not. I can only pat myself on the back for who I am. And I think that's such an important message, such a potent message. I can't beat myself up for who I am not. I can only pat myself on the back for who I am. And I guess maybe the counterpart to that, the second part to that is, so make sure you are someone to be proud of. In whatever capacity. I mean, if you're the guy that goes out on weekends to just bash people and you're proud of that, I mean, fuck it. That's a shitty thing to do, but if that's what makes you proud of yourself, actually, no, we can't tolerate that. We can't tolerate that. That's not a tolerable thing. We can't tolerate people who go out and harm others. That is something to be intolerant of. But, if you're just trying to live your own life, trying to be happy, spread a positive message, if you're very family oriented, just because someone doesn't want the same things as you, doesn't mean they're not going to live a happy and fulfilling life, right? you might want to be a millionaire who drives really fancy cars and owns 30,000 properties and, has all this stuff going for them. And someone else might just be pretty content having the one little house and the wife and the kids. And, I think we forget too easily, and I forget especially too easily, that more people are allies than my enemies, and everybody is a human being. Everybody eats and processes that into shit and uses the toilet the same as me. So just some of us have bidets, fancy, bidets. Just use toilet paper like the rest of us, you fucking weirdos. Anyway, I don't know. Today's message is, do I want to say melancholy? I've realized that I'm not as kind as I could be. Sometimes I'm a lot less accepting of people than I should be. And that is what this is all about, is trying to figure out who I am, who I want to be, and who I want to be is someone that 15-year-old me would be proud of. Yeah. Enjoy your day.